The old Africa has disappeared. Untouched jungles, huge herds of wild game, high adventure, the happy hunting grounds, those are just dreams of the past. Today there's a new Africa, modern and ambitious. The old Africa died amidst the massacres and devastations which we've filmed. But revolutions, even for the better, are seldom pretty. America was built over the bones of thousands of pioneers and revolutionary soldiers, hundreds of thousands of Indians, and millions of bison. The new Africa emerges over the graves of thousands of whites and Arabs, and millions of blacks, and over those bleak boneyards that once were the game reserves. What the camera sees, it films pitilessly, without sympathy, without taking sides. Judging is for you to do later. This film only says farewell to the old Africa and gives to the world the picture of its agony. Nairobi, December 12th, 1963. With cries of Uhuru, East Africa celebrates its independence. Uhuru is a new word. It means freedom. The colonialist regiments withdraw, and the church accepts custody of these souvenirs of an embarrassing past. Politics is new to Africa, too. A new problem for a new era. The symbol of the most progressive party, the rooster, is plucked by the nationalists. There are other new words like communist, fascist, liberal, radical. However, in the new spirit of Uhuru, everyone has the right to speak his own piece. There's a lot to fight about. Yet everyone agrees with Jomo Kenyatta, accused of being the mastermind behind the Mau Mau, but beloved as the incarnation of Uhuru. I like the English, he once said, in England. The whites must go. Africa is for Africans. However, a few months later, he himself will be the one to uphold the rights of the white people who were courageous enough to remain in Kenya. He will become one of the best protectors they had. first African armies parade into history. And the English regiments parade out. Sir Richard Turnbull, ex-governor of Tanganyika, leaves Dar es Salaam. In the garden, his askaris come to say goodbye. As the British leave, the gardens of Government House are open to black rulers for the first time. A new era, a great change. But somehow, in the little human ways, there's really little difference.
Well, Mr. Nyerere, thanks a lot for everything. It's been a very nice day. Well, very nice weather, I mean. Goodbye, Madam Nyerere. I hope to see you again. And you, too. Bye-bye, gentlemen. I say, have you by any chance seen my wife? Most embarrassing. Most embarrassing.
Politely, with great ceremony, the last governor of the British Empire leaves Tanganyika. But the elegant cordiality reeks of strain. The guest has overstayed his welcome. Here, the screaming sirens and booming cannon are no more impressive than the irritating racket of toy guns. For years, Africa asked Europe to leave, but Europe refused. Then Europe called herself Africa's nursemaid. But Africa grew up too fast and too troublesome. So now, suddenly, Europe abandons her so-called baby just when it needs her the most. Now the Africans stage their party, a well-organized, spontaneous demonstration, well run by the police, against African countries still controlled by whites. Portuguese colonialist eggs go first. And South African beer. It's not as effective as the Boston Tea Party, but the message is almost the same. Africa's free, but still black. Whites made Africa ashamed to be black. Some call blacks the devil's creation. Now, to wipe away that shame, the new Africa creates its own racism, and the devil changes his color. These lessons are taught by government teachers. The white brain is smaller than the black brain, The white man knows this and is afraid. In America, blacks invented the biggest of all bars, but they are still kept in big glass prisons, like slaves. Hannibal was the white man's master. He gave him the signs used for writing. Hannibal also gave him the wheel, which Hannibal had invented. But when he brought it to the white king, the king killed him and ate him. Because they want to become black, whites lie in the sun by the sea. The white woman is descended from the monkey, and her hair is as straight as a monkey's. The white woman has flabby breasts, so she hides them in white bags. But it's a hard lesson to learn. Here at a state-run beauty contest, even Miss Uhuru hides her breasts in white bags.
Mr. Kenyatta, President of the Republic, who has graciously accepted to attend this ceremony, let us now proceed to the first historic election of Miss Uhuru of the sovereign state of Kenya.
Would you mind waiting over there, please?
And now the verdict of the jury. Miss Kulai, Miss Uhuru, 1963.
Miss Uhuru has her admirers, to be sure. But for centuries, many black men yearned for the white woman. Before Uhuru, in her gleaming mansions and her concealing garments, she remained an unattainable dream. But now, for the price of a drink, liberated Africans can make that dream come true. They can watch the white woman draw aside her mysterious veils, and lo, there she is, revealed at last. Not in the best light, perhaps, but certainly not a dream. Just an ordinary female, aging, mocking, and pale.
Say, Abe wanna take him off?
Seeing's believing, but if you've got more money, you can really turn the tables on the past. Top government officials get rich on the profits of Uhuru. Then, for their black babies, they hire white nursemaids.
No, dear, you mustn't spit the seeds. Use your hands. Yes. Look at Daddy. He's Santa Claus with a long white beard. Don't hurt him. Oh, Willie. Why? Pretty white dolly.
Now the whites must trust to black hands the defense of their homes and families. Soldiers of the most famous white African regiment, the King's Rifles, hand over their guns. There are no ceremonies, no military honors. It's a matter of fact. Africa has emerged from her long, dark ages. She lays down the spear and picks up the rifle. Africa picks up the whites' police clubs, too, and begins training a new force. In Kenya, it's urgently needed. The young nation's first independent elections have been scheduled, and excitement has reached a fever pitch. During this campaign, irresponsible politicians promised to hand over all the whites' property, houses, cars, lands, and livestock, unprepared for modern democracy but eager to claim their shares. As if they could buy them with their votes, Africans scramble to the polls. But all they get is an age-old lesson meted out with the same old clubs, landing on the same old heads. Uhuru comes late to the white highlands, where for over 60 years only whites were permitted to own land, where Kenya's richest farms lie. Here, settlers transform the rough African bush into a little piece of England. Fox doesn't exist in Africa, but you can have a chunk of frozen fox flown in, tie it to the end of a string, and have it dragged around by a black houseboy. Together, they make a fine scent for the hounds. The British wanted so much to fox hunt in Kenya that they even taught the natives to play the fox's part. But the fox is a wily prey, one which the hunter should never underestimate. The Mau Mau were defeated by 1956, but after that, a few hardcore outlaws still continued the struggle against the British. Nairi, January 16th, 1963, the last of the Mau Mau trials.
This court will now render its decision. In Her Majesty's name, you are found guilty and sentenced to deportation to Maralal jail to be imprisoned there for 40 years. That is all. Have you anything to say? Prioress?
Digo. When the accused was arrested, we found these in his chamber. 4 rifles, a panga, and a pistol. They were made by his associates and himself for the crimes admitted to.
Mshtakiwa waitambua bunduki hii?
Armed with this gun, exhibit number 4, together with 6 of his accomplices, Rashidi Singida, on the night of April the 6th, 1961, entered the farm of the British subject John Fletcher at Aberdare Point and strangled the askari on duty, Giuseppe Nataeli. The second victim of the accused was Miss Elizabeth Regan, sister-in-law of the farm owner, who was killed by Singida by means of a gun shot through the window. Alerted by the shot, Mr. Fletcher ran to the outside stairs and was wounded. Mr. Fletcher crawled into the house to protect his wife and 2 daughters. The accused and his associates rushed into the living room and finished with their panga knives Mr. Fletcher, his wife, and 2 daughters, 18 and 15 years of age, who had looked for shelter under the table. The corpses of the 3 women were found without heads or limbs, while on Mr. Fletcher's body, a former naval officer, 72 panga blows were spotted. Do you confirm your confession to the police?
Ndio.
We take the liberty to point out to your lordship that the accused does not need an interpreter as he knows English.
You are sentenced to forced labor for life.
Jina lako. Watwa
Semejo.
wakiri kwamba hatiani kwa uuaji wa watoto 3 wa kizungu wa shamba la Bwana Fawcett. Hebu sikiliza mapato ya uchunguzi ya kesi. Tangu miaka 9 wewe ya.
And I shall set forth the facts. For 9 years, you were the nanny of Memsa Fawcett's 3 children, Richard, aged 2, Mary, aged 4, and Victor, aged 9. You saw their births, watched over their games, ate and slept with them. On the night of February the 6th, you opened a window to let Kamata Narua and his gang into the house. Bwana Fawcett was taken and butchered on the big green table. The mother and the children ran to the door. Kamata caught them at the door and cut them to pieces before your eyes.
I sentence you to life imprisonment.
Your Honor, prosecution case against Yomo Kanari, so-called general of the land's Freedom Army, who escaped together with 5 Mau Mau accomplices from the Voi jail where he was spending a 30 years term. The accused organized at least 100 collective swearings by Mau Mau, in the course of which domestic and wild animals were tortured, and obscenities, together with the crime of cannibalism, took place. Besides, the accused is reported to be guilty of vandalism against the local breeders, inasmuch as they were forced to destroy more than 400 head of purebred cattle. The accused and his accomplices had cut with the panga the tendons of their hind legs, so causing horrible pains and permanent injuries. Irrefutable evidence of the accused's guilt was supplied by one of the major victims of Cannery's vandalistic actions, Mr. Worstworth, who, with his son, followed the band's tracks for 72 days and 72 nights. At Narok, the accused was captured and delivered to the Magadi Post Police.
Well, that's that. Those bastards.
I consequently ask that the accused be found guilty and sentenced to the maximum penalty provided for by the special law.
I sentence you to hard labor for life.
December 16th, 1964. General amnesty for all Mau Mau. Because their war against the British won Kenya's freedom, because they killed 85 whites and about 5,000 blacks, Kenyatta proclaims them national heroes. Kenyatta promises them their country's eternal gratitude in the land of the whites they killed. Few real Mau Mau remain, but the offer is too appealing. 1,400 heroes reach for their rewards. The whites' land trembles under their feet. Thousands prepare to leave. Real estate agency windows are papered with offers. If you don't catch the irony, the terms of sale seem absurd. 99 years to pay. The irony is deliberately funereal, bitter, and pathetic.
To whom are staying on, Mr. G. Georges announces with great sorrow that his once prosperous farm has been put up for sale. All friends are kindly requested to dig out all flowers and ornamental plants from the gardens before the sale.
Holy Farm.
For sale.
Fraser Farm.
For sale.
Sutherland Farm.
Sold.
Brannis Farm.
Sold.
Tarbottom Farm.
For sale.
Swan Farm.
Sold.
Going. Sold to Mr. Karani for 54 pounds. Now I have 2 lovely candlesticks. What am I offered? 50. Does anyone offer more? 50 and 1, 50 and 2, 50 and 3.
It took 3 generations to accumulate all this, but now the whites can't take it with them. So they hire Indian merchants to organize auctions, like this one at Kynan Cup in the White Highlands. The auctioneers do a good business. The Africans spend freely. The old house is stripped bare. In the shadows sit sad spectators, the ex-owners, themselves just shadows of the past. Empty and silent, the old farms await new masters. Kenyatta wanted to hurt the pride of the upper-class English colonials. Only the pioneers of the highlands were chased out. The whites living on the plains are left alone. December 27th, 1963. 2 weeks after independence, Kenya begins its agrarian reform. A poem by Kano Toynbee, an African, comes to mind. Erase every trace of the white man. Uproot the tree of his evil. Plow under his flower gardens. Make them bear fruits. There where only one lived, we will make room for 100. In Kenya, the highlands are a rare oasis of green. Under the British, they were a private white estate. From outside, the Africans admired it and desired it. Now they claim it. Before, when only 150 whites lived here, it was too much for too few. But now, 10,000 Africans want in. Now it's too little for too many. The Boers are leaving Kenya in these replicas of ancient wagons loaded down with pots, pans, and families. They are recreating the Great Trek in which their ancestors fled from Cape Town 130 years ago. The Boers will not wait to be dispossessed. They are the first to go. Their trek is hard and the display is heavy, but the message is crystal clear. It's a reverse version of the Freedom March. It will lead them back 1,000 miles from Kenya to South Africa and centuries backwards into the past. There's new license everywhere. The old laws are suspended, new ones not yet written. Now there's no one to protect the reserves from poachers and meat hunters, black and white. For those who want to rob Africa of the most they can in the least possible time, this is the perfect moment. Africa offers a dozen different types of safari. One, called the 15-minute safari, is just right for the harried businessman. A helicopter picks him up on the roof of his hotel, flies him above all that difficult, dirty forest, then carefully sets him down in a nice, safe place. While he rests, the copter finds an elephant and drives it toward him. It's easy. If you can hit the broad side of a barn, you can't lose. That rented gun is so powerful it could demolish a dinosaur. Hit him anywhere. Such artillery is bound to knock him down. Then you can finish the poor beast off, point blank. Two minutes for a snapshot of the moment of triumph. And in a few hours, the great hunter can be back at the office, bragging about his heroics. The Africans don't have airplanes or powerful rifles, but they've got their ancient know-how and their numbers. So they gang up 10,000 strong, surround an area almost as big as Rhode Island, then pull the noose tight.
Immigration Sector 13. Water shortage in Sector 16. And giraffes moving to Sector 2.
63 reports hippopotami moved from Zone 9 to Zone 12. Zone 42 signals buffalo moving east-southeast to Missouri, where they have already...
In an old, abandoned farmhouse along the Zambezi River, isolated and lonely, are the headquarters of the Wildlife Society. Financed mostly by private English funds, using radios and airplanes, the Society tries to keep informed on animal movements across a huge section of the continent. Its goal, to rescue as many animals as possible from poacher-infested areas and move them to better protected parks. For millenniums, Africa's animals wandered free, obeying only the laws of nature. But now man imposes a new kind of migration, the life of the refugee. This is Operation Crocodile, working in the mouth of the Ruuma River, which is crawling with poachers. To catch the crocs, harmless traps. Their positions, marked by balloons, are set out during low tide. In the last 6 months alone, poachers have killed over 20,000 crocodiles here. The Wildlife Society can't possibly compete. This operation will save only 82. These lucky ones are knocked out with huge injections of tranquilizer serum. When they wake up, they'll be 250 miles away and safe for the moment. New Africa is populated with walking wounded, animals that poachers or hunters didn't quite finish off. So the Wildlife Society has taken on the role of the jungle's Red Cross. To treat a wounded elephant, veterinarians feed their patient pounds of tranquilizers and hope that will keep him cooperative. They make diagnoses, take temperatures, administer medicine, even maintain an animal blood bank.
Hold that tail up, won't you?
Where the hell is this damn thermometer gone to? Now, hold it, Bessie. There's a good girl.
The Game Scouts helicopter is flying over the Tana River region. Some of the men run into the bush for cover. They are the ivory poachers, the bane of the African game reserves. In this area alone, which is no larger than a London suburb, they have slain 750 elephants. The poachers have grown in number, taking advantage of the crisis caused by the present political transition. The immense heritage of the African fauna is in danger. It has been suggested to call in the United Nations. The problem, however, could be solved if greater financial aid was supplied for the protection of the game by the ex-colonialist states. In the meanwhile, both black and white gamekeepers are doing the best they can to protect the countryside. Hidden deep in the forest, police discovered hundreds of caches of ivory. One modernized army of poachers used hand grenades to massacre 300 baby elephants, all slaughtered only for the tiny tufts of the hair at the tips of their tails, out of which they make baubles and bracelets that tourists buy for a few pennies apiece. In less than a year, the police here collected 82 tons of poached ivory. If you consider that this is only 1/5 of the annual poacher's bag, you begin to understand the magnitude of the slaughters. In one valley of the Semliki, police found drying in the sun 2,800 skins of poached zebras, leopards, gazelles, cheetahs, and lions. Once this was the richest preserve in the world. Now the game grows rarer and rarer. Now rotting carcasses poison the air, and the forest is shadowed by huge columns of acrid, greasy smoke, rising over the crackling flames of the animals' funeral pyres. The Wildlife Society keeps on trying to protect a few of the living, trying to save some of the wounded, but it's a pathetic losing battle. The massacres continue unabated. Hundreds of animals are butchered every day.
Third patrol. Third patrol. John Faraday calling Flying Bird.
This is Flying Bird. Come in, third patrol. Over.
Found baby zebra, a week old, near mother's body. Killed by poachers with poisonous arrows. Emergency operation needed. Recommend special food, B16. Acknowledge. Over.
Okay, third patrol. Message received. We shall see to it.
All right, get cracking, will you? He's hungry.
Righto.
The Africa of Vasco da Gama and the great Portuguese explorers, the oldest white Africa south of the Sahara, awakens from a long sleep. For 400 years, nothing has visited this fortress, nothing but the weather. Once the Portuguese Empire stretched from India to the Americas, now all that remain of the glories of the past are crumbling stone ramparts, mute, rusting cannons, and 2 colonies in Africa. But Portugal is reluctant to give them up. They're all she has. Just outside the crumbling walls, there's a new reality, the guerrilla war of the Angolan nationalist rebels. But in the heavy morning mist, the patrolling Portuguese soldiers still seem like ghosts of the past. Whenever man is present, animals and birds hush their normal chatter, and the jungle falls silent. It's an unmistakable sign, which the rebels know only too well. Now they avoid such pockets of silence. They know that the Portuguese patrols will be there waiting. But after much frustration, the Portuguese have devised a clever solution.
Armas artificiais. 3, 2, 1, vamos.
It's a trick that almost always works. Animals and rebels respond to the tape's electric cry, and instantly the jungle fills with life and death. In Angola, the whites claim to ignore the colors of human skin. Aquí es Portugal, they said. Here is Portugal. Brancos y pretos son todos portugueses. Blacks and whites are all Portuguese. But in 400 years, until the revolution, less than 0.5% of Angola's blacks were granted citizenship. So now the rebels say, this is Africa, and only blacks are African. White and black. Brancos y pretos. An urgent problem that hate is staining blood red. When modern elections ousted them from power because they're a small minority, the Watusi allied themselves with the Chinese communists, supposedly champions of the world's masses, and revolted against Rwanda's peaceful majority, the Bahutu. The revolution failed, and the Bahutu took a horrendous revenge. In the forest, gruesome evidence. 54 amputated Watusi hands. This month, January 1964, at least 20,000 Watusi have died, and the Bahutu's revenge has been going on for years. But neither the UN nor any government, black, white, or yellow, has tried to stop the slaughter. The Kagera River carries away thousands of corpses. These Bahutu river folk feel no pity for the Watusi, but for them the Kagera is the source of life, their drinking water. They must keep it clean. They have worked like this for weeks, weeks of ghoulish fishing, carried out with reluctant diligence, yielding a grotesque harvest. days and 10 nights of exodus along the road to Uganda, the road to safety. When they ruled Rwanda, the Watusi were a rich and arrogant people, cruelly dominating the Bahutu. Now, owning only their cattle, the Watusi are poor refugees begging sanctuary, landless, homeless, uncomprehending, a people who hardly exist.
Tower control, answer. Waiting for landing authorization. We are flying over you. We are flying over you. KPN here, please answer. Over.
This is Control Tower. Authorization refused. For the last time, you are requested to move on immediately. Quicker!
Okay, AFL. We'll try landing anyway.
Sounds like they mean business, but despite the warnings, we're determined to land. In Dar es Salaam, we heard that Zanzibar has been thrown into a violent revolution. But because the rebels have cut off all communication with the outside world, no one really knows what's happening here. Rumors are only rumors. Today, we decided to find out the truth. Along with 3 German newsmen, we hired 2 light planes and flew across from the mainland. Since Zanzibar Airport denies us permission to land, we use an abandoned runway to the north. But the rebels are here, too. The Germans seem to have landed safely, but as we touch down, we catch a glimpse of them being kicked along by the rebels. Then the rebels drive a truck onto the runway, and we just have time to swerve away and pull up before we crash. The Germans' plane has been set on fire, but at least we know there's no one inside. They've all been taken prisoner. There's nothing we can do now. To land would be pointless. One more look, and we swing back to Dar es Salaam.